Hello, and welcome to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I'm your host, Chantel Cox. My purpose is to empower and lift up others who know in their heart they're meant for more. More joy, more impact, and more passion. If you're ready to make a radical transformation and create a life that you love, then you have come to the right place. Let's do this. Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Create a Life You Love video podcast, where we get to connect with people from all over the world to share tips and strategies designed to help you on your journey. So for those of you who don't know me yet, I am your host. I'm Chantel Cox. I'm an author, a speaker, and a transformation neurocoach who specializes in helping women connect with their purpose so that they can live an aligned and fulfilling life of impact. Quick reminder, this show is live streamed. So those of you with us, feel free to put comments and questions in the chat, and then we'll get to them when it makes sense in the flow of our conversation. And if you're catching the replay, you can use hashtag replay and we'll be sure to respond later. And if you're catching it on your favorite podcasting platform, feel free to reach out to either of us on the links in the show notes. So I am so excited to be here today with Colin C. Thompson. Colin is the founder of Oligye Enterprises, both in the United States and China, and it is a business consulting, coaching, training company. And as a result of his consulting and training and coaching services, individuals, teams, and organizations have developed and enhanced work and leadership skills that are essential for success in both their personal and professional environments. So Colin's facilitation and lecture topics provide teams, groups, and individuals with an increased level of confidence and empowerment in reaching personal and professional goals. So welcome, Colin. How are you doing today?
Hey, Chantel, I'm doing great. It is, well, I'm not gonna say bright and early. It's not too early, about 9 a.m. here in Shanghai, China. So I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your podcast, Create a Life You Love. And I think, today's topic or today's theme is very appropriate, especially in today's climate. So thank you for having me on. I look forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. So yes, we originally connected, I think Mbaib Tadum maybe connected us virtually after he was a guest on the podcast. And then, so that was like a year ago. And then we were scheduled to go in October. And then your wife was having your second child. So a little more important. And so the universe has aligned, and here you are tonight, which happens to be the week that we are in the middle of our free purpose and impact bootcamp. And so your expertise, your topic, the value you're going to bring tonight just aligns absolutely perfectly. So yes, super excited that you are here. So tell us a little bit about yourself. So how did you create a life that you love?
Yeah, I want to take a moment and go back to what you mentioned. I first reached out to you February of 2021, and here we are, December. It's been a long time, and it's interesting that the theme is still valid. Back then, it was how to really help people and inspire them to create a life they love, and it's still that same theme. And sometimes things shift, but interestingly, over the last 10 months, things have not shifted. So perhaps they have for individuals, but I think this theme or topic can never gets old. How to help people create a life that they love. And my background is I'm a son of double immigrants. My family immigrated from Jamaica to Canada. My father said, "This is great, but not enough," and immigrated from Canada to United States. I was born in Canada and immigrated from Canada to the US. It's funny when I tell people I'm an immigrant, they always assume Africa or the Caribbean. When you tell them Canada, they say, Canada? How many Canadian immigrants do you know? But yeah, we immigrated from Canada to the US, to fulfill a dream. My father wanted to create not just a life that he loved, but a life for his family. And as good as Canada is, the world, for some reason, the world still thinks that the United States is the land of milk and honey. So fulfilling his dream. And that really was a very, very early example for me to try to meet. Him having that desire to create a life that puts his family in the best position. And Canada is good, but saying we're not done yet. If I went thousands of miles from Jamaica to Canada, I can go a few more to the United States. So that was my first example of somebody who really sacrificed a lot to create a life they love. I use that word sacrifice because we'll talk about this later. There has to be some sacrifice there. So we moved from Toronto to Louisville, Kentucky, which is a very big change. Um, I'm not speaking bad about Kentucky, but luckily, my family being Caribbean, as far as being Black going to college, in the Caribbean, a lot of parents send their kids to Howard University, HBCU. So we all went, all those kids went to Howard. We're a big Howard family, and Howard is a historically Black college university. So that's in Washington, D.C. So in 1991, I moved to Washington, D.C. and stayed there until 2006. So a pretty nice time in DC. And while there, just going through manhood, learning how to be a man, learning how to really decide on how do you want to live your life, going the corporate way, having passion elsewhere, but going the safe corporate way. In time, I learned how to really decide what I wanted to do and go for it. That came years later when I came here to China. But let me take a pause here um, between that answer and before I go forward.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So in the chat on Facebook, we've got people saying, wow, Shanghai, that's amazing. Nice to meet you. Glad you're here. It's saying, whoa, that must have been a major culture shock from Toronto to Louisville.
I'll tell you, I moved from Washington, D.C. to Poughkeepsie, New York in 2006. I joined IBM after I got my MBA. And that was more of a culture shock. Going from DC, dark country, dark city, right, to Poughkeepsie, New York, where there may be 3 Black folk, it was a major, major culture shock for the, I would say for the area. Within IBM, not so much, because most big businesses typically have a handful of minorities and a majority not a majority white. So that wasn't a culture shock, but outside of work was a major, major culture shock. So luckily, in a program I joined with IBM, it was a 2-year, 6 months for 4 rotations, different job functions. My last one brought me here to Shenzhen, China, on December 31st, 2008. That was a culture shock, but a different kind of culture shock. It was interesting because when I got here to China, it was more foreigners bonding together to understand the environment. Whereas these same foreigners, maybe back home, wouldn't necessarily bond, but bonding here would shock me because I'm saying you probably wouldn't deal with me back home, but here you will. So a different kind of culture shock. But again, very, very positive experience. I've been here from 2008 to now, almost 13 years. So that has been a very positive experience for me. We'll talk about that in a moment as well.
That's amazing. So like when you were living stateside, very different, different populations, hanging out with different populations, and we get a little stuck in our ways and hang out with people that are like us, have similar values, beliefs,
Right.
look like us, act like us, talk like us, vote like us, most likely, all the things, right? So now you found yourself overseas, and a lot of those barriers were broken down because now you guys were all kind of foreigners, like, so you had to create a new community. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, create a new community, but for me, it was always remembering why I was here. So like I mentioned, my father always pushed us to not just go for it, right? But to really travel the world and embrace different cultures. So me coming to China wasn't by accident. It was by design. When I interviewed with IBM and any company, one question I said was, I really want to live abroad, work abroad for a number of years and gain that experience. Can you bring me there? Most said no, 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 no. IBM said there is a good chance we can if you perform well. So for me, to create the life I wanted, I had to perform well to get here. And I remember the first day I got here, my new manager asked me, Colin, in 6 months, when you finish your rotation here, what do you want our conversation to be? I said, in 6 months, I want you to offer me a job to stay here. And he did. So again, it's not just ending up here, it's creating, having intent, right? And making that happen. And anytime we try to create a life to create a life that we desire, you have to have that desire and that plan. Life just doesn't happen unless you want it just to happen. If you want to have a life to create your life, you must think about how to do that and take those steps.
100%. Yes, really creating that strong vision. And then that really, you knew what you were working towards. So then you could make your actions align with that, right? You knew, okay, I have to get a job with a company that working
Mhm.
overseas is a possibility. And then I have to perform well so that they'll send me overseas. Right. So you're not calling in sick every other day. You're not, just phoning it in. Like you are showing up as your best self, moving forward, working towards what you envisioned as the life that you love. And you got it.
Yeah, you got it, but it's interesting because it's not an easy road, as your audience knows. It's not an easy road. Creating a life, a purposeful life that you really want, it's not like this. Okay, ups and down. It's like this, sideways, up and down. It goes every different direction. Some days you want to give up. Some days you want to really go for it. Some days you forgot what you want to do. Some days you want to do something else. So really, it really takes what I say a lifetime. And I'll share with you in a few moments, what was the tipping point for me to really say, you know what, F all this. I'm now going for the life I want. I want a life by design. And here's what I'm going to do that.
I love that. Was there anything in particular in your life that made you get to that point where you were like, enough, like I want something different. I deserve something different. So I'm going to show up and I'm going to do something different.
I think, and this may sound a little odd, right? But I remember back in 2006, I was dating a young lady. We were actually engaged. She was a lawyer, went to Georgetown. I had my MBA, so very career driven. The both of us. She had her house, I had my house, and I remember driving to her house one day and saying, "Wow, I could imagine our lifestyle once you get married, right? Coming home to the house, cutting the grass, yada yada yada. The basic cookie cutter type of neighborhood, yada yada yada." And I was like, "Ugh, I don't
Yes.
want to do that. Not yet. I don't want to. It's okay. It's nice. It's okay. But once you get into that sort of rhythm, it's hard to break out. So I
Mm,
really knew that, again, getting married, if I really want to live my dream of living abroad and going abroad, I must make a decision and put that into play. Before my mother passed away, she always said, "Colin, don't forget your dreams." So I felt like I really did not want to go into that typical suburban lifestyle at that point. Let me just experience the world more. So didn't get married, suffice to say. Remember, sacrifice, right? Didn't get married, and then decided, okay, now I'm going to really go for the life I want. Now that was 2006. I didn't really start going for it until 2018.
mm, interesting. When it
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about that,
That
like
was my dramatic pause. That was my dramatic pause.
oh, okay.
So I mentioned I came here to China, and in 2008, and worked in Shenzhen, moved to Shanghai, and started working in a different department in IBM. So things are going good. Things are going great. I've always had a passion through sports. I've always had a passion to motivate people. When I'm the captain of the team, my job, coaches say, "Colin, go out there and motivate your team." So I was always big on motivating. It also comes from the fact that our family being immigrants to the US, we never had that inherent slave mentality, right? Because my father did, brought his family from poor part of Jamaica to the US, became an engineer, all that jazz. We always believed, oh, we can. It's not just the Caucasian American who can. Being Black, it has an impact, right? There may be more barriers, but you still can. So because we never were from the US, and a lot of immigrants will say this, they're coming very hungry to the US. They don't have that inherent mentality. I'll call it the slave mentality. I can't do, which is real. Okay, it is real. So it's not a knock, but it is real. So with that, I always look to motivate my fellow brothers and sisters. Man, you could do that. Despite this, you can still do it. So when I came here to China, I still had that passion in me, but didn't have a way to really get it out. Because I tell you, I can motivate you like heck today. Okay. Where I am, it's Wednesday morning. Where you are, it's Tuesday night. I can motivate you like heck. I guarantee you by Friday, you will be fired up. By Sunday, not so much. Okay, not so much. And then by next Friday, you're back to your normal, whatever. Like motivation never happened. So I was getting tired of motivating people, and I'm falling into the same patterns. Then luckily in 2016, excuse me, in IBM, some people knew about my desire to motivate, my natural habit, and they asked me to take on a role of being a blue core coach. So getting some internal training and coaching our leaders, managers, and employees through their career challenges. So I said, okay, let me try it. I heard of coaching before, and I was like, coaching, whatever. To be honest with you. So I tried it, and it was like an aha moment, followed by an aha moment, followed by an aha moment. And I'll tell you why. The main reason is, as I mentioned, motivation doesn't last. But if you can inspire somebody and then coach them from where they are to where they want to be, meaning every week, every 2 weeks, meeting with them and helping them, they're more likely going to reach their goal, as opposed to just saying, rah, 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 go do it. With coaching is saying, let's do it together. As a coachee, you're leading. As a coach, I'll support you, but let's do it together from where you are now to where you want to be. And that was what changed. So in 2018, my job role was either going away, moving to another city. I decided we were not moving to Beijing because it's very different from Shanghai. And I looked at now, so there's three things. As people ask, Colin, what were the drivers that allowed you to go for it, to really start living the life you want to create for yourself? And there's three main things. I say 1/3 was financial freedom, okay? Not independence. Luckily, over the past 10 years, the cost of living in China isn't so high, so I had some buffer. And if you're an entrepreneur or open a small business, you know you need that buffer, right? You need the runway where you can operate your business as you should and not be scared about making money next month. So 1/3, a little financial freedom. Another 1/3 was saying to myself, Colin, it's time to put up or shut up. You said you want to do this, and friends told me, Colin, you always want to try this. Try it now. It might be the last chance to try it, especially if you go work for somebody else. So that was the other third. And the last third was having confidence in failing and being okay, right? And that was big because sometimes our fear of failing cripples us and we just can't move. So I said, you know what, man, look, I've succeeded. I failed so many times and I'm still breathing. I'm still breathing. And the fear of failing is always worse than actually failing. So that part I knew no problem. So when I left IBM, took more coach training, and I opened a business coaching individuals, coaching organizations, training, facilitation, and also business consulting. And now it's almost 4 years later, and we're still here.
That's amazing. Yeah. So coaching kind of found you, but then you realized that this is my passion, this is my calling, and it really just, yeah,
Yeah,
changed your
absolutely.
life.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I found more people who thought like me. I thought it was just me who had a calling like this, right? But as you get more into the coaching industry, you meet more people who are motivated just like you. And here in China, it's very interesting. We don't view each other as competitors. How can we help each other become better coaches? How can we help each other get more clients? So it's really a very, when I say warm and conducive environment for coaches to really be able to give back and help our clients.
Yeah, I found that in just the coaching realm in general is very much abundance mindset. You know, when I
Yes.
lift you up, then I mean everything. It's about energy and flow. And okay, so maybe this person I've been kind of working with, and then they chose to hire you as their coach, but you're the coach. Like they're supposed to be coached by you right now. So good job, and mine will come. And just knowing there's always the right people at the right time. So yeah, that's
Right.
awesome. And so is there a big coach community in China?
There is, it's been growing year to year. And I think it's partly because you have people who are just feel a certain way about their current employment and don't want to go that route. And they love helping people. So they decide to go into coaching. Now, most of those folks don't last in coaching because the first few months, years in coaching, it's very hard. It's very hard for that to be your main income. So a lot of people don't make it, but there are, I would say, more than a handful of coaches who have been around for a number of years who have stuck with it. Some may have had to adopt more training than coaching. For example, I do more consulting and training right now than coaching because you got to make ends meet. So it really depends, but there are a large amount of people who want to coach, and most folks make good coaches. But you find that after that 3 year time period, if you've made it 3 years, then you're good. So the community is large, but the community is large, but you always have to continue to raise your skills, and you have to, excuse me, you have to get the temperature of today. What challenge are people having today? The challenge people having today is very different from 3 years ago. So you always have to be asking that question and seeking more information on what people are going through and how you can help them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think the calling is very much in a lot of people, but then what it takes. And so, yeah, you talked about the runway and how to be successful. And like, I'm still in my full-time job, like, and so I'm not making ends meet. I'm very financially secure. But then my evenings and weekends, like here we are, it's,
Right,
7:22
right.
on a Tuesday night. And what did I do all last weekend? And what am I going to do all this weekend? But that's what I want to do. That's what I
Mhm.
want to spend my time on. And so not everybody's willing to do the things that others aren't willing to do. And that's why some people have the results that other people don't have.
Absolutely. And I want to talk to you about, you see this over my shoulder here, positive intelligence, because this is something, as I mentioned before, it's important to always try to gauge what assistance people need. And going through, now being here in China and going through, I'm sorry to say this word, but I have to, going through COVID in China is very different than going through COVID in the US, very different from going through COVID in Africa or in Europe, right? So everybody has their own reality of what it is. Here in China, we're relatively safe compared to other places. So on a day-to-day basis, I don't think about COVID, but I know a lot of people do. And a lot of folks will say this 2 years, well, for us, it's 2 years. These 2 years have been either an opportunity or it's been a disaster. And one of the things I want to talk to you about today in the audience is about how to look at this, not just COVID, but anything we go through as a gift, right? How can we make the most of this? I have actually had more business during COVID time than I did before for several different reasons, not tied to my skill set. Okay, just several different reasons, being in the right place, right time, being able to use versus technologies, whatever. But I want to talk about the positive mindset. And so I know earlier on you took a survey. So as I sort of go through this, if you can just see if you have the results, that would be great. So,
I
and I'm
do.
not going to do a lecture, okay? I am going to be coming back to you and asking you questions here and there, but I want to talk to you in the audience about mental fitness. And when we talk about mental fitness is if you were going to climb a mountain and you were not in shape, or hill, as you're climbing that hill, you're going to get tired. You're going to breathe hard because you're not in the physical shape to climb that hill. So what you do then? You train, you practice, maybe you run a couple miles every few days, you get in better shape, come back to the hill, and now once you're in better physical shape, you can climb that hill without getting tired. It's the same thing for mental fitness. So as I talk about mental fitness, I define that by our capacity to respond to life's events in a positive mindset rather than negative mindset. And again, if you don't have a strong mental fitness, as you go through relationship challenges, work challenges, life challenges, you may respond in a negative way because you haven't built up that mental fitness, that positive intelligence. So I want to talk to you in the audience about not just the need, but how do we recognize and build up positive intelligence? And if you're able to build up your positive intelligence, you'll see it in three ways, right? The first part is performance. You will reach peak performance because you're not being weighed down by negativity. And negativity is really very heavy. If you're in that positive mindset, you're always thinking about what can happen, what can happen, what can happen. And then peace of mind and overall wellness. And we forget how important it is just to have peace of mind, our mind not racing and telling us, be afraid of this, be afraid of this, or no, you can't, you can't, you can't, and never being at rest. And finally, if you're able to build up your mental fitness, you'll see that there are so many improvements in your relationships. The first is relationship with yourself, and then with your friends and family, and then with the environment. Excuse me. So, Charles, I'll give you a perfect example. Um, and I want you to try this. Next time you go to work, right? Try this. Ask a coworker how the weekend went. If it was good, they'll say, "Oh, it was great." If it's bad, they'll say, "Oh, it was bad. I had a flat tire. I had to go down to this and that, and then this happened, this happened, this happened." A lot of times when people are sharing their experiences, they spend more time talking about the bad experiences than the positive experiences. Have you experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. And full disclosure, at some point in my life, that was me, like all the time. I was very much a glass, half empty. Woe is me. Why did this happen to me? Like just focused on all that. And yeah, life is not fun and life is hard when that's your mentality. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you later, what turned that around? Because I guarantee you what you went through can inspire somebody else, right? So I'll come back to that about what turns around. So we talk about positive intelligence and the ability to build up your mental fitness. It's really in four categories. I'm not going to go deep here, but positive psychology, right? Positive psychology. How can we, I like to say, hypnotize ourselves into being positive? Also, neuroscience. The neuroscience is, we have our brains are wired. The more we think negative, the more we're going to think negative because there's actually a electrical impulse that controls that. We want to rewire our brains to stop thinking negative and now think positive. Of course, cognitive psychology and then performance science. If you think about if you watch a football game and there's a kicker who has that last kick or a basketball game and the person has the final shot, the clock is ticking down. Some miss and some don't miss. What happens is if you have the positive psychology, when you're shooting or kicking, oh, I'm going to make this, I'm going to make this, and you make it. If you have that negative, it's, oh, don't miss, don't miss. I'm
Mhm.
nervous, don't miss. They'll laugh at you. And that negative thoughts, what causes you to err just a little bit. So if we're able to really improve our mental fitness and our positive intelligence, you will see performance improve as well. And not just playing sports, also at work. When you're writing, when you're doing a presentation, when you're doing a report, all the different ways are ways that you can really see how positive intelligence and strong mental fitness really does help you to improve your performance. So we have a thing that we call the power of factor analysis. So are you familiar with 5 why analysis?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, so
Not
so
sounding
five,
familiar.
so 5 why goes back to my process improvement days, right? So whenever we say there's a problem, what's the problem? Well, the problem is my back hurts. Okay, why does your back hurt? Okay, my back
Okay.
hurts because I carry a big heavy bag every day. Okay, why do you carry a big heavy bag every day? So you keep asking why, until you get right down to the root, right? So we found that for positive intelligence, there are really 3 basic factors. And if you think about all the colors in the world, right? Think about a play of colors going from all from black all the way through all the hues over to white. There are thousands of colors in between.
Mm,
All those colors, right? All the problems we have, all these come down to 3 things. All these colors come down to red, blue, and yellow, right?
mm.
3 basic. We want to find a way to to radically simplify our thought process of all the different emotions we have. So we think about that in terms of emotions. There are 3 root causes, or we say there are 3 core muscles that are the root of mental fitness. One is the saboteur interceptor, and the saboteur interceptor really helps us to say, okay, my negative person on my shoulder is talking to me again. He's lying to me. Let me not listen, right?
Mm.
As a saboteur interceptor. Then we have the sage. The sage is how can we turn this experience into a positive one? And then self-command. And self-command is how you can really talk to yourself and tell yourself you can, you can, you can. Not if you can, but you will. So let me stop here and take any questions or comments that you have or any questions or comments in the chat before we continue.
Yes. Thank you, everyone that's on live. I hope that this is just really aligning very nicely for you guys. So Jean asked what was number one. It was 3 minutes ago because you've had a couple 1, 2, 3 lists. So I'm not sure exactly which number one.
So
um,
number one, as far as peak performance, the impact of mental fitness.
yes, let's go with that one.
Yeah. So peak performance. So peak performance, number one, number two is peace of mind, having good mindset, and 3, being able to develop and maintain healthy relationships.
Thank you. Yeah. And so, yes, the whys, yes. So now I know what you're talking about. So mine is I call it the 7 whys deep. And so we are going to do that tomorrow as part of the purpose and impact boot camp. So yeah, it's such a powerful exercise to come down to the three emotions. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know like what I work with my clients on, and like it all boils down to these three things. So I'm interested to know what your terminology is.
Right. So we call this the three core muscles of mental fitness. And these are the things we want to build up over time. And the saboteur interceptor, first of all, I'll talk about a saboteur. So if you can look up your results there, if you have time, right, for the
They're there.
assessment. And
Yep.
a saboteur are the powerful liars that we have in our minds. So there are 10 main saboteurs. The first one being one that everybody has, and that is the judge. We spend a lot of time judging three different areas. The first area is we judge ourselves. Oh, you made a mistake. How could you? You're stupid. How can you do that? You're going to do it again. We judge ourselves, and typically we judge ourselves in a negative way, right? So we judge ourselves. The next way is, excuse me, we judge others. Oh, how could she do that? How could he do that? Oh, that's very stupid. Why is he smoking over here? Oh, that's dumb, right? We judge others. It's very simple. Why is on a cell phone while they're walking down the street? Right? We judge others very, very easily to the point we don't even realize it. And then, of course, judging ourselves, judging others, and then judging the environment. You know what? I'm tired of living in this city. This city, the population, the traffic is so bad. People are rude. I'm just tired of it. Oh, it's raining every day. I can't take it here. Why does it have to rain every day? Right? Judging ourselves, others, and the environment. And those three things, or we have to start to develop the muscles to stop judging. Now, that's the main judge. But then there are 9 saboteurs. So Chantel, do you have your results of your assessment there?
I do.
Okay. And just for the audience, I want to very briefly say what the saboteurs are, and now ask Chantel to be open and share hers. So the 9 main saboteurs are the controller. Somebody needs always control. Hyperachiever, I always must achieve more, more, more. The restless person who can't sit still, must always be doing, doing, doing. You have the stickler who thinks must be a certain way, they must be perfect. They're a stickler for making things perfect. Or a pleaser. I want to make people happy so they like me more. Also hypervigilant. I'm always scared or worried about something bad is going to happen. So let me protect myself from anything bad happening. The avoider, which I am, the avoider, you don't want to share how you feel or your thoughts because you don't want to upset somebody or you're scared they may not accept you. I'm the victim. Oh, woe with me. They're always treating me bad. Why are they always doing this to me? And then the hyper-rational. Hyper-rational always tries to think logically. Now, for example, if you told somebody, ouch, I just cut myself and I'm bleeding badly, the hyper-rational would say, okay, here's how you go to the hospital. Go down this way, go down this way, but they wouldn't say, how are you feeling? Right? So it's very different. They think they're helping, but in a way they're not. So Chantel, if you don't mind sharing your top 3 saboteurs.
Absolutely. Yeah. My audience knows way more about me. Like I'm literally an open book. So yes, my top 3 is hyperachiever, stickler, and restless.
Hyperachiever, stickler, and restless. Wow, wow. And let me first say to your audience, all of these saboteurs, the little person on the shoulder telling you lies, they are all rooted in positivity. The challenge we have with all of these is we use them too much. Just like if we eat too much good fruit, we get sick, right? These are not negative. These are all things that are positive, but when we use them too much, that one becomes a little problem. For example, you mentioned you're a hyperachiever. It is good to achieve things. The challenge with hyperachievers sometimes, I'm not trying to paint a picture for you, is sometimes hyperachievers feel that they must keep achieving because to get the glory and praise from people. And if they're not achieving, then they won't get that praise and they need that praise to feel. And the other side of it is hyperachievers, and Sean, I'm going to ask you, this is accurate. Once you achieve something, you spend very little time enjoying it before you move on to the next one. Very little time enjoying it. How's that sound?
Um, Fairly accurate. So I've done a ton of growth over the past few years. And so I'm getting much better at stopping celebrating my wins, But yes, I am always recalibrating and looking at what's next, what's next, what's next. I'm never ever going to be the type of person that's like, well, that's it. I've accomplished everything I wanted to. Let's go sit on the beach for the rest of our life and drink Mai Tais. Like there's nothing else I want to do.
Right, right, right. And you must achieve the next thing now. You can't even take a little few minutes.
I'm getting better at it, but it is literally a few minutes. It's not like a long time. Yeah.
So, want to talk about the saboteur interceptor. So when you do that, when you achieve something and you feel yourself leaving that moment and going forward, do you feel it?
Tell me more about that. Like,
So I used to do marathons and triathlons, and I know once I finish a big race, I will sit down, eat some food, and start thinking about the next one, and
mm,
not really give myself praise for this one. I've learned though, don't think about the next one for a week or so, and just be in that moment. So now, in other things, little smaller things, I can realize when I've done something, I can hear my voice starting to talk to me, right, and say, "God, what's next?" Right? And I'll say, no, I'll intercept that, right? I'll intercept it and not let that ruin that moment and ruin the emotion.
question. So at that point, when you allow yourself a week to not think about the next marathon, but have you already registered for the marathon and you know what it is and what date it is? You just don't start training for it for a week, or how does that work?
Typically no. Typically no. Yeah, typically no, because sometimes they're so far out. So typically no. Yeah, I will really try to be there in a moment. Now I will have on a calendar the races I want to do, but as
Mm,
far as say, okay, that's my next goal, let's get it. No, 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 no. I will take that time, and not even on large things, like just enjoying time with my son or something. I will be there in a moment and not think about what's the next thing I have to do on my to-do list today, right? Being there in that moment. So that's the hyperachiever. What was your second highest one?
it was stickler.
Stickler. And it's important to say that, I wouldn't say that I'm a stickler. No, or you're a stickler. You have a stickler saboteur in you, which is very, very different. And the sticklers, they need things to be very, very so precise. And just based off of your email exchange, I find that surprising because you're very open. And sometimes sticklers are not open. They will not say, "Oh, we can just see how it goes." No, they will say, "We'll do it boom, 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 boom." So I think you've been very good at managing your stickler.
Yay. Yeah, as I was taking the test, we were already on the Zoom and I'm like, I could see where old Chantel would have answered this, but right now, I mean, that's not true anymore. And so I could see the growth in myself. But some of them still showed up. So yes, at some point in my life, I was very much run by that stickler saboteur. I had very high anxiety, very high expectations for myself and others. Everything did have to be exact, or I would go into like panic mode of how do I
Mm.
fix it? How do I make it perfect? And worried about what other people thought. And now, like I was sharing before we went live today, I'm like, I purposely do this show live so
Mhm.
that it's real, it's authentic, because I know myself. If we pre-recorded it, I'd be tempted to edit it and make it perfect, and it would never actually get out to the world. It would still be on my drive somewhere, and I would have already invested like 200 hours trying to make it perfect.
I do understand that. And would you mind giving me sharing functions here so I can share a screen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. I just
Um,
want to give the audience, those who are here, I want to give them a view of these saboteurs that we're talking about here.
yeah,
And
that's
so,
awesome.
question, Chance, what was it that helped you make that shift? Because that is a shift. Anytime that we start to intercept our saboteur and stop having that poor behavior, something happens. So, what happened to make you really make that shift?
7.5 years ago, I left an abusive marriage. And had I stayed, I would not be alive today. And so I was given a second chance at life and I didn't want to waste it. And so I decided certain patterns had led me there and I was going to figure them out and break them. So I didn't keep repeating them.
That is powerful. And then let me just say, congratulations for being out of that relationship and recognizing the need to develop new patterns, right? So here we have the 9 overall saboteurs: controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, hyperrational. We all have some of these, okay? We all have the judge. We all have the judge. And then some of these are stronger, some of these are weaker. And if with the audience, we can put in the show minutes where they can go to take the assessment themselves, that can help them talk through the results. But I think it's very, very strong and very positive to go through and see where you identify, and then wait another 4 or 5 weeks and take it again. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. If you take the assessment and you realize that you are an avoider, and that means that you avoid certain conversations or you avoid sharing because you don't want people to get upset, get sad. You don't want people to have to view you differently. If you're an avoider and you find that out, I'm sorry, if you have an avoider in you, excuse me, what will happen over the next few weeks? You'll be more aware of that. So when you start feeling that you're avoiding, you may say, you know what, let me go ahead and say how I feel in a positive way. So you're now starting to change your practice on how you avoid. And a few weeks later, that may not be so strong because you've learned how to recognize it first, be mindful of it, and then change the way you react. That's very, very important. We want to get by these saboteurs. And I'll show you an image here. So a fork in the road, right? Let's say that we're triggered. We're triggered. Something happens to us and we have a choice. We can look at this in a negative saboteur way or a sage way. And the sage way is, how can I make this into a positive experience? And so many times we're so used to doing what? Going negative, going into saboteur. So we want to learn how to really go more of a sage way. And Shanta, I'm going to speak on this very briefly so we have more time for Q&A at the end. But one thing I want to say first, a lot of people will say, you know what, my saboteur is good for me. So people who are hyperachievers, they will say, look, me being a hyperachiever, I've achieved so much, this is a good thing. Or me being a controller, I've achieved so much, this is a good thing. Or an avoider, me being an avoider, I'm helping people not get upset. This is a good thing. All of these are good to an extent. They're good until you recognize you're doing it, then change your pattern. So people say, is pain good for you? And Chantel, you're saying, I know how much you realize that being in that, your second one, Scott, your second one was?
Stickler.
Yes, being a stickler brought some pain. It was not something that was comfortable. That's okay. If you imagine putting your hand on a hot stove, once you feel the pain, what do?
You say, ow, and some other select words, and you move your hand.
You remove your hand instantly, right? So
Mhm.
feeling the pain of a saboteur is fine, but remove your hand. Don't stay there, right? Don't stay there. And the pain is really an alarm saying, okay, I'm being saboteured again. I'm feeling this pain. So you have to be able to do that. And what you want to do, what you try to do, is you want to go into that sage mindset. So if you think about the way our mind works, the negative side is really on the left brain. The artistic, the emotional, the side that has empathy, that lives in our right side. Positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus, creativity, and seeing the big picture. That is on our right brain. And we want to go more to right brain. And we want to go from what we call the sage perspective. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift opportunity. And it's not easy to do. Okay, how do you take something negative and in that moment say, wow, I'm going to make this positive? Well, you can't. Well, it's very difficult until you build up your mental muscles. So when you want to turn a negative situation positive, start small. Start small, right? Don't try to take on something that's been in your emotions for a long time. Start small and learn. For example, let's say you dropped your cell phone in the toilet or in a bathtub, right? Don't go crazy. Sage yourself out. How can I turn this into positive? Maybe next one you buy is waterproof, or you put a waterproof cover on it, right? How can this be an opportunity for you to improve in the future? And I'll give you a very interesting, deeper sage example. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift and opportunity. If you're in the US, in the 1980s, there was a drunk driver who killed a little girl. Her mother was very upset, very depressed for a long time. What she did though, she said, you know what, let me start a movement. And she created Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, MAD, which saved so many lives over time. So she took a very negative, heartbreaking circumstance and turned that positive. And we're not saying do it overnight, but understand the mentality of how could you really take what's going on and make that into a more positive experience. And there's really three key things here, right? Excuse me. Knowledge, power, inspiration. So the first one is, as you're going through a difficult time or you're being triggered, intercept that thought and then say, how can I sage this moment? And for knowledge is, what knowledge would I need to gain so that payoff in the future can be much more larger than what is costing me now, right? Meaning, how can I use what I'm going through now to teach me for the future? That's the knowledge part. The power part, if you look at, this is a problem we're going through as a weight, right? And you have to go to the gym and build muscles against that issue, muscles against that weight. What muscles are you building to get through that weight? I know for me, sometimes I don't have as much confidence speaking because I speak very, very fast sometimes, and I get nervous. So I have to build my muscles. What muscles can I build against being nervous? And the more nervous I get, the worse I speak. Well, I can build muscles of positivity. Yes, you can, Colin. You speak wonderfully. I got to build up those muscles, build them up, build them up, build them up. So what power can you develop to help you get through that concern, that fear, that saboteur? And then finally, inspiration. Commit to doing some sort of inspiring action when you're being triggered, right? Take the focus off of you and put it on somebody else. Tell somebody, when you're feeling frustrated, tell somebody, hey man, I thought about you today. Have a great day. It's just that simple, right? Try to find a way to inspire somebody else when you're feeling your lowest, when you're feeling down. And if you're able to really try to sage your way out of things, you will find that over time, you're starting to build up your mental fitness, and the same things that triggered us before will not trigger us now. And the best way to do this is with your spouse or your kids. If you know how they trigger you, be aware of how they trigger you, and don't let yourself get triggered.
Oh, so good. So yeah, this has been amazing content. Yes. And different ways of looking at things that I've maybe heard before, but that's what's so great is we're always learning and getting exposed and being able to look at something a little bit different. And because yeah, I definitely will want to look more into the saboteur stuff and dig deeper on that kind of stuff. Are you ready for some questions from the audience?
Absolutely, absolutely. And let
Okay.
me add this. Once
Yes.
you're able to have a positive mindset, that helps you have the confidence that you can live a life by design. It's very important that you believe you can, right? And if you're being triggered by saboteurs, it's hard to believe you can when you don't think you can.
Mm. Um, and how do you recommend people begin doing that and how changing it to the positive?
Yeah, I think the first one, being mindful. What are your saboteurs? And best way, go online, take that saboteur assessment, right? Understand what they are. And when you take it, you'll get definitions of each one. Now you can reach out to me, I'll walk you through. But if you don't want to reach out to me, just take time, read it, and think about how you would be more mindful that you're being saboteured. For example, if you're a victim and you always have a habit of trying to pull people's emotions to make you feel better, be aware of that. And when you do it, stop yourself. Say, hey, I'm doing it again. Let me do something differently. So the first part is being mindful. Again, take the survey, take the assessment, find out which of the saboteurs are your strongest ones, and then be mindful of it. And when it happens, say, I want to do something different and
Mm,
try something different. And slowly build up those muscles. Now we have a longer 6-week program, but I want to get into that now. I just want you people to do the first thing is take that assessment. And if you do want to go forward with the program, you'll see more information on that later.
perfect. So I did drop that in the link earlier. They were already asking, where can I take it? And so I dropped that. And so Gwen's already shared her top three: restless, hyperachiever, victim, and stickler. So some people are already jumping on there and figuring out where they fall. So that's great that there's a report along with it that will help
Yep.
kind of maybe figure out some next steps and some clarity. Yeah.
Right. That's great
Um,
to know already.
yeah, that these ladies are action takers. I gotta tell you, they're pretty awesome. It's pretty amazing to have them in my life. So um, you all drop any questions you have for Colin while he's here with us, anything he talked about or anything that's sparking for you. So there's a lot of alignment with what we've covered this week. And so anything, yeah, just anything, jump in, ask questions. Um, yes. And
Yeah.
so
No,
go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. Well, so
I
let
would,
me just add, I'm sorry, let me
yes,
just
please.
add
You go.
that if your artist does want to go through one-on-one, we can do that. We also have in early January, we want to have a positive intelligence workshop, which will be online. I believe it'll be on either be online or face-to-face here in Shanghai, but I do think it's going to be online. And it's a 2.5 hour workshop. If they want to take part in that workshop, they can reach out to me. And my email should be here. If not, it is Coach Colin T, COACH, Colin T, COLINT at OLIGYE.com. But folks of you, just circle back to the podcast here and you'll see my email address. If you want to be a part of that workshop, let us know and we'll get you connected there. And the workshop goes deeper into these areas and helps you really understand, okay, what are some actions I can take now to really start to build up my mental fitness and stop letting my saboteurs lie to me. Stop letting me believe those lies, because all these saboteurs are doing is telling you lies. And they're very good at knowing how to trigger you and how to tell you the lies that you really think are what? The truth.
Mm, absolutely. So Gwen asked if you could go through again what some of the main techniques are to address the top saboteurs. I don't think I'm saying that right, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm
So, and
saying.
what I'll do is I will share my screen because when you see it visually, it also helps out as well. And I'll go back to that slide. So this view you're seeing here, these are the gifts, but I want to go back. I want to go back to this slide here. We didn't cover all this, right? Okay, so when you feel yourself being triggered, and I believe the young lady, her first one was restless, is that true?
Yes.
Restless. So when you're restless, it means you can't just sit still. You feel the need to keep doing, because there's always something better for you to do. And if you're sitting here, you're being lazy. And you don't get value from being lazy. So there's something about you that feels that you must go, go, go. And very much like the other saboteur, you feel you don't take time to think about what you're doing. It's always next, 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 next. And you get tired. You get tired very, very easily. So the first thing for any saboteur is to recognize you're being saboteured. So if you're feeling like you can't sit on the couch and do nothing for 5 minutes and you must pick up a phone, you must do this, you must do something else, stop yourself and say, okay, I'm being saboteured again. Something is telling me I can't just sit here and do nothing, right? So the first thing is I'm being saboteured, and then recognize that, be mindful. And then for your sage, say, okay, I'm being saboteured. What can I do now to make this a positive experience? And that might be to force yourself, but to tell yourself, I'm going to take 5 more minutes here of doing nothing, and it's okay. And it's okay. Tell yourself it's okay, right? So be mindful that you're being saboteured, taking a different action, because if you're being saboteured and you're restless, you're going to go off, do something else, pick up your phone, check your email, check something, do something, right? But not doing it is being powerful. And slowly over days, weeks of doing that, you'll start to build up your sage powers, and you'll find that if you stay quiet for 10 minutes, it's okay, right? Don't start day one with 30 minutes. Okay, start day one, let me say here, for 5 minutes and build up those little reps. Again, if you're in a gym, you don't start with the heavy weights the first day. You start with the small weights and build up that fitness until you can. And then self-command, right? Self-command, being able to tell yourself, okay, my saboteur is here. I'm going to act differently. And you know what? I can do it again in the future. So self-command is very powerful, because when you're walking down the street and you're feeling yourself being hijacked, what can you tell yourself, right? To calm yourself down. And sometimes it may be a little meditation, take 2 minutes just to clear your mind. But these three things, saboteur, sage, and self-command. And if you're in that sage mode, you want to focus on, here we go, right? The gift technique, right? How can I turn this into a gift, right? What knowledge can I gain now that'll help me the next time this happens? We always say, if you went back in time and did it again, what would you do differently, right? What knowledge can you gain now to be able to do that? What power must you develop, what must to develop to not let this attack you later? And then what can you do right now to give the gift of inspiration to somebody else? What can you do now when you're feeling triggered a certain way to lift somebody else up? Because what happens is, if you lift somebody else up, a small part of you will also be lifted up also, right? So you want to make sure you're spreading, people say paying it forward. I hope that answered your question.
That's awesome. Yes, and being able to, you know, give those positive vibes to someone else. And then it also raises your vibrations. And yeah, that's awesome. So she says, brilliant, Colin, and lots of fun emojis. And then said, totally, I can't be lazy, mixed with shiny object syndrome. It led her to burnout. So yeah.
Yes, yes.
And Gwen shared her top 4, and they're not the exact same order, but my top 3 are in her top 4. Like, so like, that's why we get along so well. Got it.
Yeah. And again, understand that we are not our saboteurs. We have these things in us, right? It's very important to make that difference, because now we can take control of that and make sure we're building up our sage muscles and sort of defeating our saboteurs.
Nice. I love it. Just a thank you. Massive insights. Awesome. So we're going to wrap up here in a minute. I know there's a little bit of a lag between Facebook and Zoom. So any last minute questions, comments, go ahead and throw them in there. Jessica shared her top 3 are hyper rational, restless, and pleaser. Yeah. Gwen said, love that. We're not our saboteurs. So keep those comments going while I ask Colin. So where can they get in touch with you, follow you, learn more, learn from you? Because I can tell they're just going to dig deeper.
Yeah. So I am on most of the popular social media apps. I'm in LinkedIn, Facebook. Let me in the chat here, and maybe you can transfer this. I'm going to put in here my website, and it is December 2021 now. January 2022, I will have this website up and running, colincthompson.com, because we are, yeah, I hope so. It is for me too. We are expanding there. And the best way to get a hold of me is Coach Colin T at OLIGYE.com. And I'll tell you what, for all of your students here, or your attendees here, if you want to go out and take the assessment, and let me also do this. Do we have the time here? I want to also, well, if you reach out to me, I'll send you a link, and we can put it in the show notes, a link to a positive intelligence survey as well. So there's 2 surveys, one that rates how positive you are versus negative, and one that looks at your saboteurs. Take those assessments, okay? And don't worry so much about the results, because some of these you must take more than one time to get an accurate view. But reach out to me via email or whatnot, or LinkedIn or Facebook, and we can take some time and walk you through that. Not walk you through that and sell something to you. No, take time and walk you through that so you better understand how these things are impacting your life and what you can do to what? Start saging more, right? I sage every day, right? Try to sage, be more positive and build up your positive intelligence muscles. It was my pleasure.
Oh, I love it. So the links that you just shared, Colin, I've put in the chat for those of you watching live or the replay on Facebook in the Create a Life You Love community. If you're watching somewhere else, I shared like my personal page or the business page. In a minute, it will be in the replay notes, so you'll have access momentarily. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform or watching on YouTube, it's in the show notes. If you are listening and you want to see the video and see the slides, I highly recommend taking the time to do that. And so the video will be on YouTube, on any of the podcasting platforms that allow video. Apple iTunes does. I'm not sure who else does, but I know there's a couple that allow video on podcasting. And then it'll also still be in the Facebook Create a Life You Love community. So yes, amazing.
Great.
Gwen says, I love that we are not our saboteurs. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. This, I knew going in, like as soon as I saw it, because as I was mapping out this boot camp, and I was like, we started on Friday and then we're ending, I was going to end Wednesday, but we're ending Thursday. And so I'm like, do I change the time on Tuesday? Do I ask him to change? And so we just bumped it. We just aren't meeting officially today. And so when I saw, I reminded myself your expertise and the value you were going to bring. I was like, this is just, it's divine intervention. It's like perfect. Exactly the message that needed to be shared this week while they're working so intensely on some of these exact things. So getting reaffirmation on some of the things, hearing it in different languages, and then being exposed to completely new, and now having a new resource as well to go to your website and connect with you and get the report and meet with you one-on-one and dig deeper in that way. So yes, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
Jean
So
said,
thank you very much. So
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, Jean said, so interesting. Thank you, Colin. So they loved this. This was highly valuable. So yes, thank you.
Great. Now, I do recognize sometimes we need a push reminder. So, guys, so ladies and gentlemen, if you go out now, take a moment and just find me on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, Colin, I was in a podcast." And what I will do is I will send you again a link to those two assessments, and then we can schedule some time. So if you're hesitating, go ahead and do that now, and that'll make sure that we spend time together and we don't just have this powerful moment today, but we make sure we take from this to help what? Clear barriers for you to be able to live a life by design. The first part is believing in yourself and being positive about your outlook.
Love it. Yeah. So jump on LinkedIn, send Colin a message. And then when we're done here, I will make sure that I go to your Facebook page, your Instagram, and your LinkedIn and get those in the show notes as well, for anybody watching, so they can just click. So I love to ask a question to all of my guests. And so here's your question. And it is, what are your daily non-negotiables?
Um, my daily non-negotiables. Wow. And I say wow because right now I'm going through a period of changing my behavior.
Mm,
So I'll be honest, one non-negotiables, Monday through Friday, not having a sip of alcohol, right?
mm,
Because I'm one of those little wine drinkers every night before you go to bed. But really, and what that is, it's really telling myself I don't need these things because my future is more important. So my non-negotiables are displaying the bad behavior that I know may feel good right now, but long term, not so good. Our saboteurs tell us, you know what, you need to have this, you need to have that. But once you find you don't, and once you get the momentum built up, you actually don't. So my non-negotiables are not caving in to my liars, my saboteurs who are very powerful at
mm.
telling me what I need to have, don't need to have, right? But once I recognize them, I know anything they say is a lie. So whatever they tell me to do, I try to do the opposite.
Oh, so good. I love that. Yes. So you're breaking old habits. So
Breaking, yes, long-standing old habits, finally.
yeah,
And I feel good
yeah,
about it.
that's awesome. Yeah. I recently kind of did the same thing. And I never really was much of a drinker during the week, but now I'm just like, no, I got to wake up early. I got a like 2 hour morning routine. Like, and I want to feel good during it. And I want to
Yeah,
make sure it
yeah,
happens. Like, yeah,
yeah,
I don't got time for that glass of wine. No. um,
absolutely.
so yeah, that's amazing. So thank you so much. Gwen says, super helpful, really cool way to dig into shadows and transform them into gifts. A big part of what is shifting shadow frequencies. So this resonates. Oh, that's what she does, I think, shifting shadow frequencies. Um, Yes, amazing. So thank you, Colin, for being here and sharing. And thank you, everybody who joined us live and is watching the replay or listening on the podcast. Reach out to Colin, take those quizzes, and yeah, just keep enjoying the journey. Anything else you want to add, Colin?
No, just be positive and create a life you love.
100%. So, everyone, if you got value out of this episode, please be sure to share it with someone else that you think would benefit from it. Sharing is caring. Keep the message going. And leaving a podcast review is also very much appreciated. And so you can quickly and easily leave a review from any device by going to ratethispodcast.com/Khalil, Calyl. And while you're in the reviewing mood, and you're on LinkedIn connecting with Colin, leave him a review as a speaker and talk about the value that you got from him speaking, because that is a huge help as speakers are booking other podcasts and stuff. When podcast hosts can see this person's going to bring value to my audience. So that would be amazing. And the Purpose and Bootcamp Purpose and Impact Bootcamp is still going strong. We have several more days of goodies ahead of us. Tomorrow is day 4. We will be back in the Create a Life You Love community at 6 p.m. And for registered, come join me in Zoom. And all the replays are still available. So go check that out, catch up, and come discover your purpose, uncover your unique talents and skills, and be prepared to step into 2022 with clarity so you can create the fulfilling life of impact that you've always dreamed of. And so, yes, with that, I wish everyone a very good night. Thank you again so much, Colin, and enjoy the journey. Thank you for listening to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I would love to hear from you about your biggest takeaways. Share them with me on Facebook or Instagram at Create a Life You Love Coaching. If you love this podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. That's it for now. Enjoy the journey.